Welcome to Two Guys on a Podcast. I'm Tom Waite.
And I'm Mike Cardinale.
Today we're going to continue our conversation on leadership, and we're going to focus on two new principles: emotional control and accountability.
Two great topics to put in your toolbox. So stand by. We're going to get after it.
Shut up and sit down.
Welcome back, everybody. I'd like to welcome Mike back from his Navy Reserve drill week, too. How'd that go, Mike?
Hello, everyone. Good stuff. Good stuff. We get a lot done.
Excellent. So today we want to add two more blades to our saw, two more teeth to our saw: emotional intelligence and accountability. I kind of touched on it last week in the short video I made on some accountability, but I think we're going to get into a pretty good discussion on it today. Emotional intelligence, accountability goes hand in hand with the other six principles we talked about. So these are just another piece of the pie that you can add to your toolbox, and really, the key is to maintain composure through trying times, and then also have some accountability to make sure you're following through with your commitments that we talked about last week.
Yeah, sometimes it can be a little challenging. You get difficult employees, or you get somebody that just is negative, and we talked about teamwork and things of that nature in prior weeks. And when you get somebody that's just really difficult to handle, sometimes it's challenging to keep your emotions in check.
Very much
and
so.
Not take things personally.
Very
and then,
much so.
Counterattack the individual for just being difficult to deal with.
I've really actually struggled with this pretty much my whole professional career. I've gotten a lot better at it, I think. I've been told. But I have struggled with this in the past greatly, in my emotional intelligence, losing my emotional control. And we talked about before going Marine. It's never really, like I've said before, it never really goes well. Especially when you have individuals like at your workplace or even friends, they know what buttons to push to get you to go. So I've had situations in my life where the people knew what buttons to push, so they'd push them on purpose just to see me go. And I've had to try to recognize that and combat that and really work on maintaining my emotional intelligence. There's a ton of information out there on it, books, and there's critical conversations, there's emotional intelligence, there's all kinds of things out there that you can study and learn about this topic, but ultimately it comes down to you choosing your attitude at all times. Absolutely. And not letting other people choose your attitude.
Yeah, it's difficult when people are really trying to instigate, to get you fired up. So, and
that in itself is enough to get angry.
Oh yeah, it's just one of those things, that I think that there's people in the workforce that just want that drama. They crave the drama. They want that I don't know what you call it. That just confrontational all the time.
It's almost like entertainment
feel
for
like
them.
They're involved. I think it makes them feel like they're involved with what's going on, versus just being nice to each other and trying to help each other out. It's really a difficult situation when you have people that have the potential to do well, but they just choose to be difficult just for the sake of being difficult.
Yeah. Or they have an agenda, right? So sometimes people can have an agenda, and they think by ticking off a coworker helps them with their agenda.
I think the thing about emotional intelligence is it could lead to, hostile work environment, negative influences, bullying. It's not my favorite word, but just, taking advantage of people that aren't willing to fight for themselves or to defend themselves. And so, my military mindset always thinks that if somebody is not holding down their emotional intelligence and they're just being nasty and hurtful just for the sake of being that way, my military mindset just wants to defend that person that's being taken advantage of, right?
Yeah.
And so then my emotional intelligence gets kind of fired up, and then I lose my cool, so to speak. And that doesn't go good for anywhere, especially if you're in a position of authority, let's call it, that is where people are looking at you as a leader.
Yeah, it impacts trust. It impacts that.
Absolutely.
So, have you ever had, like I said, I've never had a situation where losing my cool made the situation better.
Actually,
have you ever had a situation where losing your cool made it better. Not just ended it. Like I've lost my cool and it's ended the conversations, but it's never made it better.
No, I think actually, I wouldn't say losing my cool made it better, but when you are a pretty stable type of person and you keep your cool for the most part, and then in one instance you get fired up and you I wouldn't say you lose your cool, but you kind of yell and let
But you
people
get emotional,
know.
not negatively, but
I think that sometimes does have a positive effect. 'Cause
sure.
they're like, oh,
He's
this
serious
must
about
be
this.
a serious thing
Yeah.
because he or she typically doesn't get all
Right.
fired up like that.
yeah, mine would be more probably crossing over lines
Right.
that shouldn't have been crossed over.
I don't know that I'm. I had this conversation with my boss and my HR manager recently, just about keeping it together and not letting things that happen just consume.
Sure.
So it is important, and I think that in most places, in most work environments, it's not talked about. So I'm a big supporter of talking it out, right?
Right.
Hugging it out, getting the information out there, and I think that we talked about open and honest communication, and that is, to me, a huge part of trying to remove barriers and blockages that people have in trying to improve the work environment.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. My boss I currently have, the company I currently work for almost 4 years now. He likes to have the conversation. He encourages the conversations to the point of teaching lessons, right? Learning and teaching
Right.
lessons. We've talked about every opportunity's a teaching and a learning opportunity, and he believes in that. So he also believes that conflict, when done right, constructively, not just conflict for conflict's sake, but conflict that helps resolve, is problem solve, and things like that, is good. Tactfully done, professionally done.
Yep.
Maintaining your emotional control. I've had some very open and honest communication with him and others that the old version of me, it would have went south quickly. But because we have these conversations, it's fresh in your mind. It's okay. This is an opportunity where we can get emotional. Let me not get emotional. Let me maintain.
Right.
And to be honest, I don't want to disappoint him because he's invested time, effort, and energy into me. And I respect that. And if I do that, all I'm going to do is he's going to lose respect for me.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's kind of a situation there where you still want to be true to yourself, but let's be honest, being true to yourself doesn't mean you should be able to pop a cork anytime you want and just lose your mind.
Right.
You know, I think it's admirable that you talk with your boss and your HR and people and just other people about that, because the more you talk about it, the more you continue these conversations, the more this kind of stuff is going to be reinforced in our daily activities.
Right. And it's certainly not an easy thing. I mean, there's times I come home from work and I am just emotionally exhausted to try to maintain that kind of calm, cool, and collected, and I'm not always that way. I'm the type of person that needs to vent a little bit each day.
Sure. I think everyone
that
does.
can be in a whole different. I mean, it can be in different ways, right? It could be talking it out with my fellow supervisor when he's there, and just say, hey, you got a minute? I just need to vent. I don't need you to fix anything, change anything, tell me anything. I just need to vent. And I think people need those outlets, but it's when do you use them and when do you don't. So that's
Yeah,
part
because you
of
can
that.
overuse that avenue.
Yeah.
Like all of a sudden it becomes a burden on that other person.
Right.
I actually had my a boss from a previous job tell me, you got to come in and vent less. And there was two meanings to that. One was he didn't want to hear it, right? He didn't want to hear it.
Right.
And two was he wanted me to go figure it out, right? Wanted me to go challenge it. He understood venting every once in a while, just behind closed doors, right? So it's
Right.
not public, or you find, like, the worst case scenario is you bring it home, right? And then all of a sudden you come in the door and someone looks at you wrong, and boom, you lose your emotional intelligence there. It's very challenging.
I admire those people that can shut it off, because
Yeah.
I'm not one of those
The
people.
daytime compartments we talked about, right?
Yeah,
Dale Carnegie.
I'm not very good at shutting it off when I get home, because I'm an overthinker. So I'm constantly analyzing conversations, interactions, events of the day. So working third shift, I get home at 9 o'clock or so, 10 o'clock, depending on whether I stay and chat with the management. And it takes me sometimes a couple hours to wind down.
Yeah.
So I typically don't come home right away and go to sleep. I do on golf league Thursdays.
Sure. Get to bed early so you can get up.
Yeah, because I get up at like 1:30 to go play golf. But and then I work till the next day. But I think the other thing is just getting rested and being ready, mentally prepared for the day. Going into work today, I know there's things I'm going to have to deal with and cope with that are not going to be pleasant. So I got to be in the right mindset, right? So it can, and we'll talk about it in a little bit, but it's the accountability to yourself to make sure that you're working on keeping cool when things are getting heated.
Yeah.
And it's not always an easy thing to do.
And you can, like I know in my shop, you can, especially right now in Michigan, it's 95 degrees out all week. Extremely hot. People are hot and muggy. They're working out in the shops, and the shops are 115 degrees, and so tempers, if you will, are real short. And if something happens, and it can just light a fuse, and tempers can go. So what we do is we engage people, right? So we talked a couple shows ago about just walking around the shop engaging people.
Yep.
So you walk around the shop. Number one, and here's the, like for us right now, being as hot as it is in the shop and stuff, you engage people going, hey, are you staying hydrated? Are you getting in the break room? Taking it, I think we're giving extra breaks right now. It's so hot. We got Gatorade. Go in and get something cool to drink. Stay hydrated. So you just engage people in that form, and instead of going out saying, well, what are you working on? What are you doing? It helps them maybe separate a little bit, and then if there is emotion is running high, it's just a method to be able to just bring it down a little bit, right? So especially if we see conflict, if our leads and stuff see conflict on the floor, they can address it pretty quick. Because when it's hot and humid and people are tired and cranky, it's real easy to elevate real fast.
Right.
So we really try hard to at least enjoy. Like, again, one of my mottos: if you're not having fun doing what you're doing, you shouldn't be doing it. Now, I'm not working in the 110 degree heat, right? Because I wouldn't be having fun doing that. So I would probably be on edge. We had a situation today. Coming to work, our computer's slow as molasses. I mean, just horrible. And we know our IT department's working on it, trying to get it right. But it affects everyone emotionally. And literally, you can walk in and just feel there's a computer problem today because everybody's on edge. So, today, it almost, I don't want to say we were joking about it because people were still a little frustrated, but it wasn't like it used to be. Like it used to be, people were mad.
Right.
Now it's more, again, not jokingly, or it's kind of jokingly about it, like, oh yeah, well, get comfortable, stare at your screen and wait for it. But we know it's getting better, so that's the goal, is to keep it in the end. Like you said, be prepared. We know that potentially you can come in tomorrow and we're going to have computer problems and stuff, but be prepared. I mean, businesses used to run without computers, right?
Right.
So it's really, like you mentioned earlier, it's really when you start working with the personalities. When you go, especially if like you said, you're going to go in, you're going to have some challenges. Mentally get yourself. You got to drive. I don't know how long your drive is, but you got an hour drive where you can mentally get prepared. The key other, like you mentioned too, you replay things in your head and try to learn from them. Again, learning and teaching opportunities. We mentioned a few shows back, day-tight compartments from Dale Carnegie. Lock some stuff up. Easier said than done.
Yep, definitely easier said than done. I think one of the things that frustrate employees, like the computer thing, but one of the things that I think we're going through a lot of equipment changes. So there's a lot of new stuff being put in. Employees are complaining about not getting training and stuff like that. And so one of the things is trying to keep their emotional intelligence down here because they're getting upset that things aren't working. They come in, see, things aren't working again, and that just fires them up.
Change is difficult.
So I noticed that if I feed into that, or I say, yeah, I know it's kind of frustrating, so I try to keep a different topic ready so that we can talk about something else. Hey,
get them off of that.
Yeah, like I understand this thing is not working, but we have worked on this, and this, and let's focus on these things that are working right. And I'm going to make a note of what's not working right, and I'll take it up, and we'll just, I said, but remember, we brought this up, and it took a few days, but it got fixed. So just be patient. Things take time, and we'll keep working on them. And that, it boosts my frustration with the equipment.
So there's
too.
a scene in Saving Private Ryan that when they're walking through the field and they're talking about how the mission they were on is FUBAR and whatever, and they asked the character Tom Hanks, Captain Miller, I think his name was, why don't you ever complain? And the troops asked him that,
Right.
and he said, well, because I'm a captain and you're a private. I don't complain down, I complain up, right? So same kind of thing. When you're out on the floor and somebody's frustrated, so you could be just as frustrated, but if you feed the fire, boom, now everyone's emotional.
Right.
And we said earlier, there's people out there that'll try to do that, to try to get you emotionally.
Well, I think
out of
there's a
whack with
difference
them.
between empathy and sympathy, right? If you kind of say,
Yeah.
"I know it's so terrible," it's different. If you try to understand their complaint and let them complain, but it's difficult not to complain down.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's
Well, because you're talking to those people more probably throughout the day,
Oh yeah,
so it's easier to just fall into that, if you will, fall into that. I don't want to say trap, but just fall into that era of negativity.
Well, there's no managers on site when I'm on site.
Yeah, so you're
for the
kind
most
of
part.
on your own.
Yeah, it's just me
Yeah.
and one other supervisor. So
What's
And-
interesting too about what you said earlier was, if like you can go in tonight anticipating it's hot, right? I don't know, is your place air conditioned?
yeah, well, we have, because we make cheese and it's frozen.
you got-
we
yeah,
have
you
a
got
freezer
freezers and
area,
stuff.
but I mean in our separation area, it's hotter. So there's different areas of the plant that some. Could
Yeah,
be
so
hot,
you
some
could be
cold.
going into various different, someone in the hot area, it could be a little cranky because of the heat and the temperature and everything.
Right.
The same with me. And you have time to go in and prep and be prepared, like you said, to be able to say, you know what, I hear what you're saying. I agree that new equipment, it's a challenge. We got to figure it out. We're going to work on it. But what about this, this, and this? And it's not really distraction, but it's a redeploy of the resource kind of
Right.
attitude, Like, hey, okay, we can't go this direction, but we know we can go this direction. Let's band together and go this direction.
I think the biggest challenge is keeping people inspired to stay engaged with what they're doing.
Yeah.
And when you're making cheese, it's day in, day out, pretty much the same thing, but at the same time, every day can be different. Over the last several months, we've had some equipment problems, so that's that causes a lot of product loss and waste. And it's obviously the more waste you have, the
That's money, yeah.
less productive you are financially, and it's not a good thing. But just keeping the employees on point. I think the biggest thing that's frustrating for me is in other environments, it's always been that employees will complain about what's going on, but we're all at a common goal to make things better. The thing that's really unique about where I'm at right now is there's people that are really negative and not wanting to be positive about trying to make improvements. And that's the part that I've really tried to work on over the last several months is keeping people focused on trying to help each other out, be a team, but they are so worried about what the other person's doing. In a lot of cases, it's a union shop, so, well, that's not my job. Or, why aren't they doing their job? It's always
Right.
deflecting and focusing on somebody else's weaknesses
Yeah.
versus saying, hey, how can I help this person get better? It's more of, I'm not doing their job, they're not even doing their work, they're taking longer breaks and yada,
Like
yada,
taking
yada.
their
And it's
slack.
just that strife that is continuous. And so that's, and I haven't worked in a lot of manufacturing environments, but some people tell me that that's just the manufacturing environment. I don't take that as something that, that's the way it should be.
No, it definitely shouldn't be that way. And I think there are manufacturing environments like that.
Right.
Like ours isn't like that. But ours isn't a union shop and things like that. So there's challenges with workforces that are union, and there's challenges with workforces that aren't union.
Right.
I think those challenges probably are different in most cases. Like most union shops probably have very similar challenges, and most non-union shops probably have very similar challenges, but those are different challenges.
Well, I think you always have,
And it's more because of the personnel,
well, you always have personnel problems, right? I think the challenge is that the personnel problems are if the employees are attacking each other.
yeah.
You always have some conflict where a personality, this person doesn't like that person. I get that, but when it starts affecting the process, that's when I have a problem with it, right? Because
Well, what's a commander's intent? What's the goal? At your shop, the goal is to make production,
yeah,
right?
they don't
Make
look
it
at
good,
that
make
way.
it safe.
They look at it that the
production.
goal is to make their job as easy as possible.
Yeah. So I have one of my weightisms is easier isn't always better, but better should always be easier, right? So if you focus on just being doing it easy, you're going to be scrapping a lot of food, and
Right.
you're gonna be making bad cheese. God forbid, bad cheese gets out. So in your line of work with the FDA and stuff, there's some pretty high standards you got to maintain. And somebody trying to do something easy, cutting a corner, or just not giving their 110% or their 100% can cause some serious issues.
Oh yeah, for sure.
The interesting thing about that too is, if you can as a leader, if you can find, we talked about this earlier too, the people that are your influencers outside of yourself, right? So the people out on the floor that are the influencers, and make an example out of them and their attitudes and how they come in and they're all about, yeah, I'm here to get a paycheck, but I'm also here to do what the company needs to do.
Right.
Because it's my livelihood. I'm taking care of my family this way. The challenge with it is the people that I punch a clock, whatever. I'm going to get paid whether I'm working as real hard or not working hard or whatever. And now what does that do to your job? That makes your job harder. You got a department over here doing on task, making rate, doing what they got to be doing. You got a department over here that maybe isn't. They're negative, whatever. So now you got to divert your resources here to try to, hey guys, let's go. We got to rally this. And then now what can start happening is that's where cliques start developing and attitudes start coming around.
Yeah.
And really, so part of emotional intelligence is not only maintaining your own, but helping other people maintain theirs. You mentioned it earlier. When they start complaining stuff, you give them that ear for a minute and you say, okay, we get it, but let's refocus. I hear you. I'm going to follow up. I'll get back to you, but let's refocus.
And I think that, we talked, I believe it was the first week, about trust, and I still feel very strongly that trust is the foundation of leadership. If you can't build trust with your employees, if you're not consistent, you're not doing the things you say you're going to do, and I tell them when the employees say something to me about X, Y, Z equipment not working, or this not working, or I told you about this last week. I tell them when they come and they intently tell me something like, hey, this isn't working, Mike. I tell them, I said, okay, I write it down in my notebook. I put it in our log for our turnover information. But I always tell them, make sure you remind me if you don't see a change in a day or two, depending on what it is.
Sure.
If it's something that needs emergency, something that's, we got to get maintenance there right now to fix it, that's different. But if it's something that, like last night, we have a new piece of equipment. It has some PLC that needs to be adjusted. It's not correct. So I sit in, and so the person's like, hey, I can't do what we need to do because this piece of equipment's not functioning correctly. I've tried it in manual in different ways and it's not working. I said, okay, wrote it down. I said, I will definitely in the morning. I know they're going to be here. I'll talk to them. We'll get it fixed. So I talked to the other supervisor, gave him all the information. He was going to follow up on it. But tonight when I go in, hopefully there's some change made.
Right.
If not, I have it in my notes for the following day to
Sure.
go back to the operator and say, hey, either, hey, this is what happened, this is what's fixed, let's try it this way. Because just like any other company, I think our communication is sometimes, there's some gaps.
Well, especially shift to shift, and
Oh yeah, shift to shift. I think that most of our opportunities for waste happen at shift changes. If equipment doesn't break and everything's
Sure.
running like it should, most of our opportunities I think happen when we're doing pass.
And that would probably make sense because now all of a sudden you don't have the eyes on it like maybe you do in the middle of a day or something, middle of a shift.
Yeah, because you want to keep people focused all the way to the end of the shift, right? So sometimes what happens is an hour before the shift's over, people are thinking about getting home.
And
They're
they're
thinking
cleaning
about what
up,
they got to do.
yeah.
They're not cleaning up.
Okay.
They're thinking about what am I going to do when I leave here because I got this,
I can't
this,
wait.
this.
I can't wait to get out of here.
Right, and then they lose focus on what
That's
they're
when
doing.
injuries can happen too, and things like
Yeah,
that. And
yep.
it's really, especially like I said again in this heat, real easy to get distracted. So we got a couple trifecta going on here in Michigan, right? We got the heat, we got schools out, right? So we got parents with young kids that have kids that got to worry about that.
It's
now.
summertime,
We got
man.
summertime. It's the season to, in Michigan, to go enjoy the beaches and hiking and camping and everything else.
And I'm subject to that too.
Yeah.
We talked about, I got the new camper, got the motorcycle, got the Jeep. I want to take it out, and I've only had the camper out one time. I'm thinking I got a weekend coming up. I got a 4-day coming up in 2 weeks. I got to make plans. I'm the same way, but I take, if you want to call it emotional intelligence, to stay focused on what the task is, and then the little tidbits throughout the night. I might take a minute to write a note down. Okay, I need to do this for the camper.
Get this. Yeah.
Or I need to, I need to remember. Oh, I need to make the reservation. Whatever it is, and I try to go around to the operators, and talk to them on a personal level too, right? So if they do have something that they need to take care of, we can talk about that. And I think that them vocalizing it, them verbalizing it, helps to take the focus off of that and back onto work.
Yeah, it almost is like it's almost like a little bit of a time management thing, right? So you allow them that couple minutes to take that, if you will, that mental break from what they're doing.
Yep.
Engage you and say, you know what, I got to do this, I got to do this, I got to do this for my weekend trip up north. Yeah, I'm looking at doing something similar. You have that little back and forth a little bit, allows them to do that, and then say, okay, well, good talk. Let's get back to it and stuff. And it gives them that a little emotional break that they might need.
Yep.
The interesting thing you were talking about there is when you said, so utilize emotional intelligence to stay focused. It's really accountability, right? You're taking a self-accountability to say, I got as many distractions as anybody else. You got the Navy Reserves, you got child graduating high school, you got the camper, you got the Jeep, you got all kind of things going on outside of work, let alone the things that didn't work. But you got to take that, and I talked a little bit about it last week, the forced accountability and self-accountability. You take the self-accountability to stay on task.
Right.
I'm at work. I'm all in at work. I'm doing what I'm doing. Nobody, and if they tell you they do, nobody is 100% all about work when they're at work. It just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
It's just that'd be almost impossible. You can't just shut your life off outside of work when you're at work. Bosses and stuff will say they want that, but even they don't do it. So you got to have the ability to have the accountability to stay focused on the things you need to be doing. And really, when you tie accountability for yourself, for your actions, for your attitude, into that emotional intelligence, really maintaining emotional intelligence is all about accountability. Holding yourself accountable to not pop a cork, right? And or not to allow two other people that are having emotional control issues get out of hand. You got to jump in there, and it's all about taking that accountability and then being able to diffuse those critical situations.
Yeah, and I actually I take it one step further, because I ask my co-supervisor, if you want to call it that, when he's there, to say, hey, if I start getting a little nuts,
Pull me back.
Yeah, check me and say, hey, Mike, hey, remember? And he does it in kind of, he's a very intelligent guy, so he does it in kind of comedic ways, but it's kind of funny because I know exactly when he's doing it, right? He'll say, hey, come look at this on the computer. Or, hey, Mike, I need your help. And he did it last week. It was kind of funny. There's on Bing.com, they had this, looked like a goat or something, and it was just chewing something, but it was doing it over and over again, and he got the biggest kick out of it. So he put it up on our big TV where we look at cameras, and he's like, just poking fun, but he knows the right times. Well,
that gives you that, even if it's it gives you that 15-second mental break to where you can check yourself. We have a couple guys at work, and we have like we've tried code words, right? So we'll be in a meeting or something, and things will be getting heated, and all of a sudden you'll hear someone say, hold fast, right? And that's one of our guys, they can get emotionally worked up.
Right.
That's his kind of, he hears that, he knows, all right, I get you, I got to check myself. But here's what we find, more often times than not. That person will be engaged with somebody, and it'll be getting emotional, and me or someone will be like, hold fast. And that'll just get them ramped up even more.
Right.
Like, screw you, I'm not losing my temper. but no, but you are, so whatever works for you to be able to recognize, because that's really the key, right? Like I said earlier, you get to choose your attitude, not other people.
Right.
And if you're allowing other people to influence or choose your attitude, then you're not having a self-accountability to maintain your emotional control.
Yeah, and it's difficult. I think the one thing that I have to work on quite a bit is every once in a while I spurt out a cuss word or two, and it's distracting to people, and I don't even realize I'm doing it sometimes. I'm just having a general conversation with somebody, and I need to stay accountable to that, because my HR manager, we've had multiple conversations, and she'll say, "Hey, language." I'm like, "Really? I didn't even notice I did it." So I'm trying to hold myself more accountable to making sure that I'm not using poor language when I'm in a
Sure.
professional environment. And it's just something that, I don't know if it's the sailor in me or what, but sometimes I'll just won't even know I do it. My girlfriend tells me all the time, "Really?" I'm like,
So that's interesting, because like I had friends in the Marine Corps that they said they only smoked when they drank, but they were always smoking. So I'd be like, "Are you drinking right now?" "No, it's the middle of the day." "Well, then but you're smoking. And you always tell me you only smoke when you drink, right?" So it's that almost like I don't even, what would you call that? Your anchor, right? One of your anchors you're dragging behind you. So like swearing, I had a situation where in a professional setting, I'm actually really good at that. I'm actually really good at that. Outside of that professional setting, I'll swear like a Marine, right?
Right.
And that what that tells me is if I can do it around my boss and not swear, then I can do that anywhere and not swear. But I'm choosing when to put those filters in.
I think sometimes it's just subconsciously do it, where like even recording a show, I don't think I've dropped.
Well, in the bloopers maybe.
Yeah.
We both.
And
we got a couple bloopers I'm working on a blooper reel. So occasionally, especially when we're setting up equipment.
Yeah, I'm just I don't realize I'm doing it, and I think depending on the setting I'm in, I hold my tongue, but that's not always the case, and I think it's because you're moving, you're it's just flowing, right? So if you stop to think about every single word, that doesn't come off genuine sometimes. So I've sat in job interviews, like I'm on a panel interviewing a candidate, right,
and the candidate's talking, we're having this back and forth with the panel, and they'll swear, right? So what I started noticing, my boss, he'll be taking notes during the interview, and he'll always like flip to a couple pages later, and he puts a tick mark, right? And if you're observant, you can see that. Right. If I was interviewing for a job, and every time I swore I saw him write a tick down, I'm thinking I better start choosing my words more carefully. Right. We've got some people at work that'll interject in meetings the swear words, and we've actually had this conversation, and he says, like, he swears. I've heard him swear, but never at work.
Right.
Ever. Not even if it's just him and I in a room, right? But if we're out golfing, occasionally maybe I'll hear something. But to his point, there's no point in it, right? If you want to emphasize something, you can find another adjective to emphasize it. But it's something you got to work on. It isn't easy. It's something everyone probably has, like, especially we both have military backgrounds, and I don't want to say it's cool to do it in the military, but it's just kind of what it becomes part of the.
The thing is, I only think it's a bad thing because other people think it's a bad thing. I really don't care. If we're in a
but then I think it comes down to presentation, right? Professionalism.
Yeah.
And that.
But I don't know. I'm not so sold on the fact that, dropping tons of F-bombs and blah 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 and using really nasty words, I guess, would be one thing. But if you say, "Oh shit," in a meeting, I don't. Some people
Correct.
find that completely offensive, and I'm like, really? Come on. So I think depending on the content of the environment,
if you're doing that occasionally,
such a big deal.
If you're doing that occasionally, there's actually I read a study that said people that swear have higher trust factors. People trust them more. Same thing with beards, right? If you have a beard, people trust you more.
No.
Weird studies, but people with beards are trusted more. People that swear seem to be
It's
trusted
interesting you say that.
Kind of
'cause
weird.
One of my coworker, or one of the gals that work for me on third shift, two of them actually. I said something in the break room. We were talking about something, and I said, "Oh, f that," and both of them kind of looked at me, and the one later on said, "I think it's funny that you cussed because it makes you like a real person."
Tears down a false barrier they had of you.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, because I think that some of the people that I work with, not so much anymore because I've been there for 6 months, but they thought I was this straight-laced, holier than thou.
Company man, yeah.
Yeah. And so as they kind of realize that I'm just an average guy trying to feed his family and have hopes and dreams just like everybody else, I think it makes them a little bit more loyal and a little bit,
like I said,
work a little
they
bit.
trust, right?
Yeah,
it's,
absolutely.
It's a weird thing. I have had episodes at work where, I'll be in the room with just a couple of the ladies that work for me, and I'll get emotional. My emotional intelligence will go out the window, and it'll be a steady stream of some some language, and they know that they recognize that as they recognize I have that in me, and they recognize that I do it in essence behind closed doors with them. It's never at them; it's with them, kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's like venting. If you're doing it to please other people, and you're not doing it because you think it's the right thing to do, then again, you're probably not being accountable to yourself, and you're not going to walk into church doing that. But
I think I have once or twice.
but the point being, it's a personal choice, and a company can have a culture of, hey, language don't, it's inappropriate, right? Certain swear words are, no matter what.
Well, it's in our handbook. It's actually in the company.
Yeah,
policy.
it's in most. Yeah,
Right.
it's in most. But again, it goes back to the accountability. And if that's the worst, right? If you're getting your job done and you're knocking things out, and good leader and your team likes you and everything, and there's occasional of that, now HR could come and say, hey, we need to work on that, right? But that's a different situation than if you are carrying a lot of baggage and you're doing that. Now it's how much effort are they going to put in? How much effort are they going to want to spend with you to help you curb that habit, if you will? It really comes down to the traits we've been talking about with leadership. Kind of bringing this full circle, like I did a little bit last week, but now with you back, we can kind of, hopefully you're seeing how these traits all interrelate.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Right? So you got the ego, the trust, the time management, the teamwork, the honest communication, the commitment, the emotional control or emotional intelligence, and the accountability.
Yeah.
Right? And then intermingled in there, you have all the other things we talked about. We talked about attitude. We talked about
Compromise.
teaching and learning, compromise.
Yeah.
If you can bring all these things together, those little tidbits that we're talking about, bring it together. Well, analogy I like to use is you look at, and I talked about this a little bit before, I think we both have, you look at the military, you look at the fire, police, first responders. They have to make quick decisions quickly, like literally critical decisions quickly. That's what I meant. Critical decisions quickly. And life or death decisions from time to time. And they weren't born with that. They learned that. And some are really good at it, some not so good. The key with it is, if you could start recognizing those opportunities and employing some of these things, keep a head, cool head, be accountable, be willing to make the decisions, right? Ego, all those things. It all ties together. It all ties together to help provide direction and leadership for a group of people, to inspire them. That's what we've been talking about. So this is literally our fourth show on leadership, not counting last week's, and we got a pretty good tool bag right now.
Yeah, I think so.
And I think the focus should be on taking away what you can, and really, if you find something you like that we talked about, go learn, go dig, go learn more. We're just establishing a little communication, a little conversation on it. I actually have some coworkers that have watched the show. So when at work. We'll continue this conversation. I had a one of the production manager today say to me, we were talking about an individual out on the floor and maybe talking about areas where they could get a little stronger, right? And I said, oh, you ought to make it required for him to watch the podcast. So I was doing a shameless plug there, but the point being is what he was struggling with this individual, we talked about on the podcast. So maybe that individual could take a little bit of what we said and understand it, put it in the context of what the production manager is talking about, and make some improvements.
I think that people have to be willing to make a change, right?
Yeah,
Say if you're an alcoholic, you got to recognize it. If you're a smoker, you got to recognize it. You got to be committed to making a change, right? And it's one of those things that it's not easy. I mean, we talk about a lot of theoretical principles and we use some examples. I was thinking about this on the way home the last week or so, because we weren't able to do the show, so it's not like I just shut down this stuff and I don't think about it.
Yeah, right, absolutely.
I'm living
it's
and learning
constant.
it.
Yeah, it's constant.
And so my leadership project for my capstone to get my master's in leadership, oddly enough, this has been, on the top of my mind for the last several weeks, and actually had a conference call with my what do they call them? My professor, but it's not my professor. It's my faculty consultant.
Yeah.
So
like a counselor kind of thing.
Yeah.
Career counselor kind of.
No, not a career counselor. It's like this is your project. I'm the person focused on making sure you do it and you do it right.
Oh, right.
So we talked a little bit about some of the things that I'm working on at where I work. But it's all about am I willing to make sacrifice? Am I willing to try to change? Am I willing to continue to learn? And we talked about it in the first or second week about ego. Ego is a huge thing. For me, the foundational principles that really kind of tie everything together is trust and commitment. Yep. So,
it's interesting you picked those two. Like I 100% agree with trust. I agree with commitment too, but those are tied together. Right. You can have great trust if you're not committed and you don't follow through with your things, you'll lose the trust.
Well, you mentioned earlier that your boss came to you and was talking about being able to vent and open up. Well, I think it's difficult to build that because you have to build a layer of trust foundation so that you may be thinking, is this guy doing this because he wants to get rid of me, and so he needs to get more information about how I do business? I mean, if you sit down and talk to an employee, I'll give you a perfect example. I handed a piece of paper to an employee today that I needed to have them sign. And I said, hey, when you get a chance, I need you to sign this, right? I didn't tell the person what it was. I just handed it to her and said, hey, when you get a chance, I need you to sign this. And her first response was, I haven't had any attendance violations. I haven't had any. I said, no, it's for the bid job that you signed. This is just saying, yes, I will take the job. But the thing is, because there's still some trust building opportunities, they immediately think it's negative. Yeah. Every time, if I say, hey, I need you to come upstairs so we can talk for a minute. Oh, it's
what I do now, yeah.
But it's not just them, it's even their coworkers. So for me, trust is absolutely the number one first thing that needs to be established before you can lead anybody, and quite honestly before anybody will follow you.
Absolutely.
So it's one of those fundamental principles I think that have to be established for anything else to be done. And I've been trying to do that for several months where I'm at now, and I think that it's been a little challenging to say the least.
It's probably, especially in your role where you're stepping into a team that's established already and now you're the leader of that team. Like we talked several shows ago, there's people that lead by title and usually not very successful.
Right.
And there's people that lead by example, right? And you're a lead by example kind of guy. But you also try to educate or teach and learn. So you're learning every day and you're teaching every day. You're trying.
Yep.
And through the teaching efforts and stuff, and quite honestly through the learning from them, that's where you build that trust.
Well, I thought it was interesting. I had a manager in one of our factories tell me, and I wasn't sure exactly how to take it, but he said, Mike, you're too honest.
Yeah.
And I don't know that there's any such thing, but apparently there is. Actually, I was talking with my my co-supervisor and my manager today, and I made a couple of statements about an employee, an observation, and they were telling me, that might be too open and honest. And I won't go into the
That's
details
interesting.
about
Yeah,
what
sure.
was said, but
That's interesting, though.
they say sometimes honesty can be hurtful. I said, yeah, but it's still
honest.
better to be open and honest when it comes from a genuine, because it's not coming from a malicious, hurtful
You're not like
place.
trying to get someone in trouble.
Right. It's just coming from an observation from a, hey, have you considered this before? And I certainly sometimes sound like I know everything. I don't. I learn every day.
Sure.
But I just thought it was funny, they said.
Yeah,
Maybe
and
that's
you know
a
what
little bit too
that's
on.
almost like code for they're just uncomfortable. You just made them uncomfortable.
Right.
A little bit. And that's one of the other themes we've been kind of hitting on through all these episodes is getting out of a comfort zone, right? So when you learn the most is when you get outside that comfort zone. If you never get outside your comfort zone, you're never going to grow. You're never going to learn. You might not be able to teach. So if you can get out of your comfort zone, so when someone says, well, that's a little brutally honest there, whoa, a little too much, TMI, well, that I just made you uncomfortable, that's a good thing.
Yeah, and I think you need to have that.
Especially if you're telling the truth. I mean, you're not making something up, right? You're not just telling a story. You're giving honest, open feedback on something that might make them uncomfortable, and their reaction is, sometimes you're too honest. That's almost code for like, whoa, there's some things you should keep to yourself. But in a professional environment, if it's something that's going to make things better, why would you keep it to yourself?
Yeah.
Just because they're uncomfortable?
People aren't used to a certain way of doing things. And my manager even told me today, that I approach things in a different way that even the supervisors and the employees aren't used to.
Right.
I'm the only one to this point to date in the supervisor ranks that is willing to put themselves out there and try to influence some changes. And it hasn't been easy. It's been pretty challenging. But I think the management group understands what's trying to be achieved.
Sure.
And support it. It's just not a very...
So the intent is there. They recognize the intent.
Yeah.
It may not be what they're used to. They may be used to nobody doing it, or they may be used to people doing it a certain way.
But you're trying to break habits and practices that have been there for years.
Because if it was all rainbows and cupcakes, you wouldn't have to be trying to do what you're doing, right? So sometimes a new approach is a good approach, right? You don't know until you try.
Right.
And again, all these little traits that we've been talking about, they all roll back to that. Take that little bit that you got, go try it. Go test it. You know what? Like when you test drive a car before you buy it? Test drive leadership principles before you buy into them, right? So go test it. Pick a situation and go, oh, I read a book on this and I can employ this right here. You're talking to yourself going, yep, here's a difficult situation with an employee. I can employ this and we'll see what happens. And then when you have success from it, go bingo, boom, just block that in my toolbox. That's good.
Right.
Or you can say, well, that didn't work real well. That doesn't suit me. We talked about that with time management. Find what suits you, right? Find what works for you. It isn't one size fits all. None of these things are one size fits all.
Right, definitely
So
not.
maybe people at your organization have been trying the one size fits all, thinking it's working, because we're making cheese, we're shipping it out the door, we're getting paid, yep, good. It's that drive to get better. It's the continual improvement, trying to get better and better and better. My boss has E2B2. And I think that's, I'm pretty sure that stands for everybody, every day, getting better and better. So everybody, every day, E2, B2, better and better every day. Every day, better and better.
The thing is, there are some people that are just not going to do anything more than they have to get by for the day that they're at work, and that is okay.
If they're doing what's expected, then you're right. They're
not necessarily going to get better. I mean, there are people that,
and you're going to need people like that. You are. You're just going to need the people rowing the boat.
I mean, there have been people that have been putting cheese in a box for 10 years.
Yeah.
That's what they want to do. That's all they want to do. That's okay.
Yeah.
But don't do it with a negative,
your malice in your heart,
poor attitude,
exactly.
where you're making everybody else around you miserable.
I had a guy at an old job. We had a guy there, And he'd be the first one to tell you every day how much he hates his job. How bad of a job it is, bad of a company. He was there for 35 years. He couldn't hate it that bad.
Right.
But he was just so used to complaining about it.
There's a difference between hating your job and hating it enough where you're actually going to leave. Because the thing is, just like in relationships, you stay in a relationship because it's convenient. You stay in a job because it's convenient. Yeah. At least
change is difficult. People don't like change.
Yeah, it's what you're going to deal with every day. Even if you're going to go in and complain about it, you know the evil. Well, they say the evil that you know is better than the evil that you don't.
Yeah.
So if you're in a job that you hate, but you know what that job is, you know that it's going to be consistent, then you stay there for 35 years. We got a couple people like that at our factory that's going to be leaving soon, and all they do is complain about it. But they've been there 33 years.
They can't hate it that bad. So I've been involved with reviewing resumes of people and stuff, and they'll see you get the resume where the person has a new job every 15 months for the last 10 years, and immediately the perception on that is, well, this guy can't keep a job. It's all over the place, jumping all over. And then you got to ask them, explain to me the moves.
Right. And
sometimes it's every move on there was better for me and my family. Right? Or you have the other guy that says, that place was stupid and they didn't know that's code for I got fired, whatever.
Right.
But you got to find out, because some people are in that continual improvement method, like I'm always looking to better myself, and the other people are, they can't hold the job because of their attitude and all the traits we talked about, the lack of that ability to adapt to a situation. It's interesting because I started my new job 4 years ago, but I'm doing the same thing I was in essence doing before in a previous job, quality. You've had a wide range of different employment things, and now you're in manufacturing of food, which is a pretty, there's high standards on that. So you're in an environment now where, it's new to you. Well, new, you've been there a couple of years, but still, you're learning every day challenges and things like that, and being able to tackle them head on because of the lessons you've learned in the past. These leadership traits and things we've been talking about.
Yeah, and making cheese, I can be there. We have a guy that's been there 35 years. I'll never know as much as he knows about it. Right?
He's forgotten more than you'll
inherently know. Being there and watching things happen, and that's the one things I learn every day, because something new happens every day that I haven't experienced before, because I've only been back in the production. Really, in essence, I've been in the production world for about 18 months.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and that guy's been there 35 years.
Yeah.
I think it's important, as we come to a close here, I think we've had good discussion here. We do encourage everyone, continue the conversation. Take the 8 traits we've talked about, take other things we're going to talk about in the future, and continue those types of conversations. I think we're going to be bringing some pretty good new stuff coming up forward.
Yep.
We got like I mentioned last week, we got an interview lined up with an individual that I think is going to be really good for the 4th of July weekend. A real patriotic interview going. Great guy. I think you would really enjoy him. A fellow veteran. We got some other things lined up. I think we'll start some new conversations on some new topics. Again, we said earlier, leadership will kind of be, we're going to build around the leadership thing, but we'll talk about some potential, we might talk about your first camping trip and how that went and things like that. The idea is to just continue this conversation every day, come back, or every week, come back and see what's going on. And again, we want to hear from you guys, comments down below, send us a message. Continue those conversations with us or with other people. That's what we encourage you to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Engage with people and, find out if you have a difficult person at work. Sometimes it's just easier to have a little side conversation in the break room. Hey, what did I ever do to you to make you just want to hate me so much? Or something like that. Because people often react to that pretty in a positive way.
Yeah.
Depending on how it's approached. Just make sure it's a genuine approach to trying to resolve conflict.
Yeah, maintain your emotional control.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
Be committed to it. But we're going to have some pretty fun topics coming up in the coming weeks. So I do think we should do a camping video.
That would be great. I think it would. Well, almost like a review of your camper, right? You would even go on a tour of your camper.
I actually have done that. I've done a 20-minute video of my camper,
so we could use that. We could slip that in there because it's. I saw it. It's a nice camper.
I'll take you for a little walkthrough before we leave.
So again, like us on Facebook, subscribe to us on YouTube, continue those conversations with us through the feedback. Give us some ideas of what to talk about. I think we will definitely do the camper idea. We're still going to do some book reviews coming up. We're going to talk about the power of trust, or the speed of trust, speed of trust, and extreme ownership. A couple books like that. And we're really going to have some fun, I think, this summer, breaking down some various different topics.
Yeah, absolutely. We might even do a product review. Who knows?
Absolutely. We got a lot of products that we can review.
We've been buying a lot of stuff to try to make this podcast work.
We're going to figure it out.
And also for all the dads out there, Happy Father's Day.
Happy Father's Day.
Father's Day's coming up. Hopefully I'll be camping this weekend. So
well deserved, yeah.
Go out and have some fun with family. Go out and do something cool. But Happy Father's Day to all the dads out there.
One last thing I want to wrap up with, Mike. Congratulations to the Grand Rapids Griffins. Calder Cup champions last night in Grand Rapids. They beat Syracuse.
Nice.
The AHL Hockey League. It's an affiliate of the Red Wings. The Grand Rapids Griffins is a minor league team, basically, of the Detroit Red Wings. So congratulations to them. Brought it home on home ice in Grand Rapids, Michigan.
Good deal.
Yep. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
So until next week, thanks for coming in, checking us out, giving us a listen. We'll see you next week with some more entertainment.
Have a great week.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Tom.
Well, that does it for this week's show. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time on Two Guys in a Podcast.